At the end of this upload, I was talking about proof that, or a possibility of where these creatures may come from, if they are flesh and blood or if they are otherworldly. And I started to talk a little bit quickly about things that I had read pertaining to the government hiding the answers from us. And I thought the statement had come out of Hunt for Skinwalkers, but that is not true. And the statement actually that I shared at the end came from visitors from the void, which would be otherworldly. And this is exactly what that says, what the statement was. I am not a tub thumper for officialdom, but it is the best that humanity has so far been able to erect to manage its affairs. And not infrequently, governments and departments of governments are not nearly as stupid as the public imagines. A golden example is our National Park Service, which gets on with its job without fanfare and turns in a magnificent account of itself year after year, despite the crass stupidity and appalling destructiveness of the public it serves. Now, what that statement means is our government isn't as dumb as we think they are. They are pulling the wool over our eyes on a daily basis. National parks, 411. Visitors from the void. Is that where these people are going? To the void? Or are they going to deep underground military bases to be genetically tested upon? Anyway, let's get into the upload. I just wanted to kind of share where that came from, correct myself. So, greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today's upload, terrifying experiences and some even more terrifying kind of controversial evidence, scientific theory. But before we get into all that, a couple links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. The merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click the bell icon. And folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter and are appreciated. And now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's upload, shall we? Really briefly, before we jump into today's upload, I had a very interesting phone call yesterday. And I'm not going to be able to share the experience today with you guys because the person that shared it with me, it's a secondhand experience from a very good friend of the person that had the experience. And it was 2 years ago. The reason why I say interesting is, one, it comes from Cattaraugus, New York. Two, it happened to an Amish kid who's 20 something years old now. And the person that contacted me, he is not Amish, but apparently they can have Amish friends, or English friends, excuse me. So he's been friends with this Amish kid for pretty much the majority of their lives. I guess they live right down the road from each other. And as long as the rules are followed, he's allowed to have this English friend. And I never knew there was, well, I did know there was an Amish community in New York. I didn't know where it was. And Cattaraugus is in the Finger Lake region of New York. It's western New York. So the interesting thing about all of this, one, is it's an Amish young man that I guess the Amish are, because of their religion, are not allowed to believe in the paranormal, to even talk about cryptids, or, you know, if it happens, it was the devil's work and whatever. They have to, I'm not really sure, but apparently the Amish kid was sworn to secrecy by his dad. And the dad and him both, I guess, could get in a lot of trouble with their community because they saw something, failed to report it or whatever. I don't know the legality of it all. And nor did the English kid. He is not English, he's from New York, but they grew up together. Apparently an Amish and English, or Amish and, you know, modern American, can be friends as long as there is no kind of religious rules broken. And they've been friends since they were little kids. And the English had actually saw a Dogman, or what he believes to be a Dogman. And he was going to share it with me a while ago. He was going to hold off on sharing his friend's experience because it's not his, and he didn't want to violate any kind of friendship they have, which is really cool, you know. I mean, how many people would do that, you know, knowing that it could affect him in his community and such. Doubtful that an Amish person is going to be listening to my channel, but you know, it was just very, very, very cool to hear him talk about how much he respects his best friend here. And I guess the dad and the Amish kid had seen it in their fields. Apparently there was more than one, and he just wants to make sure that he gets all of the details and got all of the details right. He's going to talk to him sometime today, see if he can at least jot down or possibly record his friend talking to him. But very interesting, and he seems like a really, really cool kid. I would really love to just speak to the Amish kid, but I'm definitely not going to be able to. But I think it would be so interesting if we could interview him. But that's neither here nor there. I really can't wait to share the experience with you guys. But I promised that I wouldn't until he made sure all of the details were correct and spot on. And to see if there was anything extra that he had missed or whatnot. But very cool, and looking forward to sharing that with you guys tomorrow. So today's upload, a couple of days ago, I was talking about Skinwalker Ranch, portals, and orbs. And I was thinking about how people who have these experiences, Dogman, Bigfoot, whatever, they tend to see orbs either before, during, or after. And the other day I had kind of brought up, what if these things are actually like an entrance to a portal for these creatures to go into or come out of. And I got to thinking about it a little bit more, and I was like, there's a couple of experiences that I've heard and things that I've read that point to that as being a possibility. So I want to share those experiences with you. Also, I want to share a little bit of scientific theory. And I think that for me, this information is probably some of the greatest information to hear. So let's get into it right now. Now, I remember when I started the channel, I was a little close-minded when it came to portals, orbs, Dogman, Bigfoot, etc. I used to really believe that there was no connection to portals, orbs, and these creatures. I just thought that each were their own paranormal anomaly. And after years of doing this and years of looking at old research that I had read and jotted down and such, because prior to starting the channel, I used to write down a lot of just information that I would pick up here, experiences that I would hear growing up in the Adirondacks. Obviously, Whitehall, New York, hot spot for Bigfoot. The Adirondacks are truly a home of Dogman, Bigfoot, and other creatures alike. We have the Lake Champlain Champ monster, and there's supposedly another sort of creature that lurks in that lake. More or less something that resembles a creature of the Black Lagoon, I guess. And I wouldn't doubt it, because Lake Champlain is a pretty big lake. It is huge. If you're standing at one end of the lake, like if you are at the northern part of Lake Champlain and you stare south, it almost seems like it never ends. And it's a beautiful, beautiful lake. But on top of that, all of the Native American spirituality, the wars, the Revolutionary War being fought here, Last of the Mohawk or Mohegan written here. A lot of battles like that happened here. Bloody Pond is one that should have been shared in that book and movie by James Fenimore Cooper, because it's a true Native American tragedy. And to this day, people that live in that area of Bloody Pond near Lake George still hear screams of just a torturous death and almost a mass extinction of a small group of Native Americans. Crazy stuff. But I never thought that these things were connected until I opened my mind a little more and talked to more and more people. This one experience that I'm going to share with you is one that kind of made me start to believe or think that these orbs were not just an anomaly on their own, but had a key role in other experiences. So this is the experience that really kind of opened my eyes to the orbs being a part of these experiences, and just not another anomaly on their own. This is a friend of mine's experience. He's a cryptozoologist. He's a friend of the cryptid or cryptozoological community. Just a very nice individual, Ronald L. Murphy Jr. This is a true experience, and it may seem like a work of fiction, strange and illogical in its structure and content, but I assure you that these events have happened. Like every good horror story, this too has its monster. In this case, it involves something known as the Dogman. It is an ambiguous creature that is anthropomorphic in shape, but gives the initial impression of being somewhat canine. In short, the Dogman is an enigma. This is not a new cryptid to the paranormal universe. Indeed, the notion of the Dogman goes back to at least the Pliocene, if not further. It serves as a quintessential boogeyman, something immediately recognizable, yet grotesquely brutish in shape and behavior. The Dogman is, in essence, the stuff of nightmares. The Dogman straddles two worlds, blurring the line between man and beast. Mankind has always been preoccupied with the notion of transformation, of moving from one state of being to another. It is part of human nature to marvel at the natural world and to fear it. There is a healthy sense of reverence hardwired into humanity's psyche toward the forest and those things that go bump in the night. And the concept exists even today. This is why researchers such as myself set out into the woods and the remaining wild places and attempt to track down the conundrums such as these creatures known as the Dogman. We want to get at the truth that lies within the shadows, and I am sure this is why you are hearing this experience now. I consider myself a cryptozoologist. I'm educated in various concentrations and experience with the workings of the natural world and in the ordered chaos within human imagination. Now, this does not mean that every time I venture into the forest I find evidence of this creature. Indeed, I am blessed with such a healthy shape of skepticism that I often go out not actually believing in the quarry I seek. However, I'm also knowledgeable enough to know that something is going on out there and has been for a very long time. In the ancient tales told by the indigenous tongue and in the modern eyewitness accounts, there are frighteningly similar reports of something like the Dogman, and this is why I still head out into the vast reaches of the pine forests and swampy bottom lands. But because I am an academic researcher trained in the disciplines of anthropology and archaeology, most of my investigations are carried out in a library. As I sift through decade-old reports of hair-covered dog-like creatures prowling about on two legs, and as I reread eyewitness testimony of areas where such creatures have been seen, I have pinpointed an area that seemed to be a prime location for the elusive creature, such as the Dogman, to hunt without much human interference. I ventured out at around 9 p.m. on a cold fall night. The night was hideously dark. My flashlight scanned the leaves that were orange and red, but still lingered on the trees. I was well off the beaten path, and any nuisance of light pollution was obscured by October's cloud cover. But this location was the rumored haunt of the Dogman, so I zippered my jacket against the chill and set out down the path that twisted under a hill, on which an abandoned cemetery forlornly through the rustling tree limbs. Dogman is a cryptid often associated with the abode of the dead, with a lineage stretching back to Anubis and its ubiquitous presence in the Egyptian funeral rites. However, this creature is also frequently seen, even to this very day, prowling around Indian burial mounds and on grave sites in Native American reservations. From the point of folklore, this area was the ideal site for this creature to be found. But our Dogman has always been a creature of liminal regions, the threshold between this world and the world of the other. And out here, on this sullen trail that carved its way through the autumn forest, I felt as if I were hopelessly adrift in this space between the worlds. As I swept the woods with my night vision camera, I was struck with an incredible feeling that I was not alone out here. I saw no animals through my eyepiece, no squirrels rustling through the leaves, no rabbits stirring the stillness. No, this was something else. Light anomalies seemed to be following me along this darkened path, nearly indiscernible in the fall light, but I could plainly see the pinpoints of unmistakable living light flitter through my lens. Light, soft glows that darted and danced in a twisted undergrowth that lined the path, occasionally skipping out of the tangles and illuminated trail. Even after my eyes adjusted to the night, I could see these illuminations without an electronic aid, but I ventured onward, following the lights that moved forward, leading me further. Then I came to a long-abandoned railroad bridge that spanned the river, that flowed like a black ribbon in the valley. The little lights that had accompanied me now left me as the woods halted at this bridge. In the center of the bridge, I felt utterly exposed. If I were being hunted, I was now vulnerable. There was nowhere to run, and in the stark nakedness of the bridge, there was certainly no place to hide. The rather soothing electronic glow of the camcorder, which I was carrying, suddenly seemed to have its energy inexplicably drained. The battery light suddenly flickered on, and above me the sky that enclosed the world in its inky embrace seemed to spark with a static electricity, reminiscent of the electricity produced when you pull the blankets from your bed. Something was happening to the world around me, and suddenly a visceral urge shuddered my body. I knew instinctually that I had to get out of where I was. I must get back into the confining woods and make my way to my car parked nearly 1.5 miles away. At this point, it was not a choice. It was an imperative drive to stay alive. I turned. Behind me, the trail disappeared as it was swallowed by the gaping void of the woods. But immediately as I turned, my eyes widened in trepidation. There, where the trail plunged into the abyss of the forest's gullet, a light of living intensity sparked to life, shimmering and sputtering like a contained Roman candle suspended in air. I immediately called out, knowing rationally that there must be a person behind it. My mind worked with the information before me, struggling to process it intellectually. It must be a person. What else could it be? I glanced into my night vision camera eyepiece. There was nothing here. The light was gone as quickly as it had come. And there was no person on that trail. Unnervingly, my battery icon on the camera was flashing in urgent SOS, begging to be recharged. It was as if the light, manifested before me, used nearly all the remaining battery in my camera to power itself to life. That made no logical sense. However, cold and shivering from the uneasiness, nothing else made better sense. And that gnawing instinct that sent a shiver of compulsion through me to run for my life was much more forceful now. I knew I must get out of these woods. I quickly walked to the bridge down toward where the light had ignited. Soon I made it to the tree line. shrouded by the overhanging branches that closed in on either side. I was alone, utterly. The night was empty. Then the electricity shivered my body that instilled fear into me. I felt as if I were being watched again. I also had the startling realization that I was being hunted. My quick walk became a trot until I found myself fumbling into the darkness at such a pace that my heartbeat was pounding in my ears. My face stung as branches slapped my cheeks. My feet tripped over some roots and through the brambles as I veered from the trail into absolute darkness. Soon I realized I would inevitably stumble and fall. Every primal instinct in my civilized brain screamed, ensuring me that if I fell, I would be pounced on. Something in the night was stalking me. Then something happened. Even telling you this now, it seems rather difficult to believe, but I assure you of the truth. Off to my left, out in the woods, and higher up, as if a person called out from the cemetery on the hill, I heard my name called, Ron. The voice was androgynous and undefinable. It was a quick gasp, yet stark in its immediacy, and it was an urgent call. Instantly and hard to my left, something stirred in the twisted brush, and in that littered leaves that covered the forest floor on the other side of the trail, something was moving closer, stalking. I could hear its breath. The night air was wet and cold. As the stick snapped under its weight, I realized with unmitigated terror that I could see what was there. It was as if my synapses in my brain fired to produce an image of a creature that I knew was part of my collective unconsciousness. It was primal and bestial. It was the same menace that pursued the human species since we first walked upright out of the African savanna. It was a dogman. My brain constructed the creature, drawing out of memories locked within my DNA. It was huge, hulking. I could see each step it took on those paws, and were more like hands. Its snout was lined with rows of needle-like teeth. Its nose smelled the air, pulling my scent out of the cacophony of odors that filled the woods. And those eyes, they were the eyes of nightmares, because they were the cause of nightmares since our genesis. The red eyes narrowed with accuracy, seeking me out, but I knew it was there, and it knew it was well. A little voice that called my name alerted me not only to the direction of the path that led to my car, it also shook me to my attention. The dogman may be part of our evolutionary journey, a clever, self-aware creature that still stalks the civilized world, preying upon us, but we have the intelligence that lifted us out of the jungle. I backpedaled, looking through the viewfinder of my night vision toward where the creature stalked the darkness. The battery, which had been dangerously low, was now reading that I still had over half of a battery power left. I quickly spun the camera around, finding the trail into the blackness of the night. Then I slowly followed the trail, keeping the night vision trained on where the dogman lurked. I could hear it snarling, its breath wet and obnoxious. But it never left its hiding place. It remained concealed in that thicket. Even when I had finally made it to my car and locked the doors before turning the key, I knew the creature was still crouched over in that forest. its eyes red, scanning the path, waiting for its prey. In reviewing the video evidence, I could see little points of light were captured. So too was the light that glinted so brilliantly when I was out on that bridge. I realized it was the light that drew me back into the woods. Why? Why did the light have intelligence? Did it know there was a creature hunting these woods? Other reports associated with the Dogman have occasionally reported strange lights. Is the Dogman interdimensional? And are the lights the visual evidence of portal openings? I'm not sure. But the lights did coincide with the appearance of the creature. And what about the voice that called my name? It did not appear on the film. That was my own little experience that cannot be shared. It was personally. The sounds of this creature prowling in the brush can be heard, but without the voice, I am convinced I would have been pounced on from behind. Another missing person case without this voice. But this time, I made it out of the woods. I had encountered the Dogman, and I survived. So everything that he said in that experience makes sense. One, he is very, very intellectually. He is very smart. He uses big words because that's who he is. He doesn't do it because he is or feels like he is better than anybody who doesn't use those words. Those are just his manner of speaking. But by using those words and by using different words that we would use, the layman, what he did was painted a picture for what I'm going to share with you right now. His description of the Dogman being here since possibly the Pliocene era, which I believe to be true, 100%. And there is a few other scientific researchers that believe the same. And, one is a brilliant gentleman by the name of Danny Van Drimeny. And if you've never heard of him, there is a book that I honestly tell everyone to get. Danny Van Drimeny wrote this book called Them and Us: How Neanderthal Predation Created Modern Human. Now, the title, I had two people tell me that the title was stupid because Neanderthals didn't create humans. And I was like, that's not what it means. That's honestly not what it means. But this book really does open some eyes. If you haven't read it, and you can get it on a Kindle for dirt cheap, or you can buy this. I bought this, I think it was like $30 or something. But to me, I would rather have a book than I don't know, anything else. I think books are amazing. They're just, the amount of knowledge that's in this book is amazing. Definitely a book to get. But remember what he said in that experience, and listen to this. Every human culture has believed in the existence of other beings, monstrous, humanoids, sapient but inhuman. They have gone by different names: boogeyman, bugbear, cyclops, giant, ogre, Anya, troll, yeti, Bigfoot, Dogman, and more. But they are always feared lurkers in the shadows, threats to the clan, tribe, and hearth. Dungeons and Dragons did not create these monsters, and despite ongoing controversies, they do not represent anything modern. Humanity's legendary heroes have been fighting these creatures since time immemorial. The real question is why? Why does every civilization have similar myths? Why does every culture have legends of monstrous humanoids? And why are they always depicted as fearsome and dangerous. Because legends are real. Because Dogman, werewolf, Bigfoot, ogres, trolls, and Yeti are real. That is at least the argument offered by Danny Van Drimeny in his book Them and Us, How Neanderthal Predation Created Modern Humans. Van Drimeny is a heterodox thinker, and his argument is well outside of the mainstream view. So, before we delve into Van Drimeny's book, let's discuss what mainstream view is. The mainstream view, archaeologists and geneticists agree that humanity co-evolved and interbred with similar species. We, nowadays, have an abundant, essential, irrefutable archaeological and genetic evidence for the existence of multiple human-like species. Within the Paleolithic and Neolithic era, these include Neanderthal, Denisovan, Hobbit, and several others recently discovered, and uncategorized species such as the Nasher Ramla Homo in Israel. A new human-like species is being discovered all of the time. In fact, there's probably one being discovered in China right now, which just recently there was another species of human-like creatures, or I guess creatures, that were something like 9 feet in height. Yet, none of these archaic humans or humanoids survive today. Not a single one. All have gone extinct, vanishing save for traces of artifacts and bones within our wilderness and fragments of DNA in our genome. What happened to them? Here, disagreements begin. The possible causes of extinction, identified by scientists, include extinction from parasites and pathogens, extinction from interbreeding into humanity, extinction from the inability to adapt to climate change, extinction from natural catastrophe, and extinction by war with humans. The latter view, which suggests that the human race brutally extinguished the other sapient primates it faced, was first proposed by French paleontologist Marceline Buell back in 1912. It was then promptly ignored for decades, as explained in the Archaeology of Warfare and Mass Violence in Ancient Europe. Archaeologists are increasingly aware that they have underestimated the societal impact of collective violence. Sites, Ribma, Kessel, Calcrease confront us in a poignant way with the cruelties of war and mass violence in late prehistoric and early historic times. There is a growing archaeology has marginalized violence and presented too pacified of a view of the past. Actually, it wasn't just archaeology that was biased. Academics of all sorts hate violence, and for decades they systematically marginalized it from their explanations of events. Only within the last 20 years has the mainstream academics and scientists accepted the ubiquity of violence in man and his closest kin. Anthropologists systematically underestimated the violence of indigenous peoples, perpetuating the myth of a noble savage. Now they have admitted the level of violence in prehistoric times and non-state societies was much higher than today. Biologists believed that chimpanzees were only violent because of interactions with humans. Now they have confirmed that violence is innate to chimpanzees, who routinely engage in war and murder. Historians argue that Indo-European language, culture, and bloodline spread through migration and trade. Now they have acknowledged it was through large-scale violent conquests. With these developments in mind, mainstream academics have finally begun to accept that human beings drove the Neanderthal to extinction through war. Nicholas R. Longrich, a senior lecturer in evolutionary biology and paleontology at the University of Bath, presents an excellent summary of the current consensus. To war is human, and Neanderthals were very like us. We're remarkably similar in our skull and skeletal anatomy and share 99.7% of our DNA. Behaviorally, Neanderthals were astonishingly like us. The archaeological record confirms Neanderthals lived where anything, and Neanderthals' lives were anything but peaceful. The best evidence that Neanderthals not only fought but excelled at war is that they met us and were not immediately overrun. Instead, for around 100,000 years, Neanderthal resisted modern human expansion. And thousands of years, we must have tested our fighters, and for thousands of years, we kept losing. Finally, a stalemate broke, and the tide shifted, and we do not know why. It's possible the invention of superior ranged weapons, bows, spear throwers, throwing clubs, let lightly built Homo sapiens harass the stocky Neanderthal from a distance using hit-and-run tactics, or perhaps better hunting and gathering techniques let sapiens feed bigger tribes, creating a numerical superiority in battle. Ultimately, we won. But this was not because they were less inclined to fight. In the end, we likely just became better at war than they were. The mainstream view, then, is that Neanderthals were behaviorally and physically much like humans, made war much like humans, and were eventually defeated by superior technology and numbers, much as Europeans defeated indigenous people throughout history by superior technological numbers. In other words, we killed off Fred Flintstone. Heterodox view. Let us now consider Danny Van Germeny's book. Van Germeny agrees with the mainstream that Neanderthals were driven to eventual extinction. War with Homo sapiens. Where he parts ways with mainstream is in his assessment of what Neanderthals were like. Van Germeny shows that Neanderthals were an apex predator. Analysis of isotopes of the Bone College has shown that Neanderthals' diet was 97% meat. They were estimated to have eaten 4.1 pounds of fresh meat a day. Ample evidence exists to show they used stone-tipped wooden spears to hunt. From the bones littered in their caves, we know Neanderthals hunted woolly mammoth, giant cave bear, woolly rhinos, bison, wolves, and even cave lions, the most dangerous and lethal animals on Earth. Neanderthals were cannibals. A number of Neanderthal sites reveal bones that have been cut, cracked, and opened to extract marrow. While this hypothesis is initially rejected, a recent find at El Sidrón in Spain revealed numerous Neanderthal skeletons with the unmistakable mark of butchery by cannibals wielding hand axes, knives, and scrapers. Neanderthals were more robust bones, heavier musculature than Homo sapiens. They weighed 25% more. They were so heavily muscled that their skeletons had to develop extra thick bone. One of the most characteristic features of the Neanderthal is the exaggerated massiveness of their trunk and limb bones. All of the preserved bones suggest a strength seldom obtained by modern man. Quoting paleoanthropologist Eric Trinkus, a healthy Neanderthal male could lift an average NFL linebacker over his head, throw him through a goalpost. Neanderthal also evolved extremely thick skull, post-cranium hyperrobustity that protected them in close quarter confrontation with prey. They also had kyphosis, which hunched backs that gave them a distinct profile and gait. Neanderthals' teeth were twice as large as humans, according to a 2008 anthropological research. Their mouths could open much wider than a human mouth, enabling them to take extremely large bites. Judging by the size of their jaw, shape of their teeth, they had a tremendous bite force. Neanderthals evolved in the Ice Age and had specific adaptations to climate. They had short limbs, large noses, compact torsos. More importantly, they were covered with a thick fur. Since no Neanderthal cadaver survives, this point cannot be proven, but Van Drimini points out that every primate except for Homo sapien is covered with fur, and that every cold-adapted mammal during the Ice Age had thick fur, including mammoth that are hairless in Africa, such as elephant and rhinoceros. There's no reason to believe Neanderthal were hairless except for our desire for them to look like us. The only way Neanderthal could have survived in the Ice Age without fur is if they made thick protective clothing. Archaeologist Mark White points out Neanderthal clothing would have needed to be more than a ragged loincloth of popular depiction. Some form of tailoring would have been required, but Neanderthal sites have yielded no evidence of needlecraft technology. They were not making clothes. Why? Because they had fur. Neanderthal skulls had extremely large eye sockets, suggesting very large eyes. That in turn suggests Neanderthal were nocturnal. However, the large eyes pose a problem. In the Ice Age, Europe would have presented Neanderthal with blinding sunlight reflecting off of the snow. Van Drimini suggests that the Neanderthals had vertically aligned pupils, which enabled them to use the full diameter of the lens in low light, while shutting out bright light by day. Nocturnal primates, such as the rhesus monkey and owl monkey, all have large eyes with vertically aligned slit pupils. Van Drimini suggests Neanderthals also had the tapetum lucidum, like a cat, that made their eyes shine in the dark, and had a dark sclerilla like other primates. Neanderthals had a distinct facial prognathism that featured large, broad noses. Van Drimini argues that this suggests a Neanderthal snout with a dog-like nose designed for hunting. This was useful during nocturnal raids. They did not speak a language. He quotes September 2008 talk presented by the American Association for Physical Anthropologists. Their large nasal cavity would have decreased the intelligibility of vowel-like sounds, and the combination of a long face, short neck, unequally proportioned vocal tract, large nose made it highly unlikely Neanderthals would have been able to produce quantal speech. Neanderthal tongue was also not shaped to speak. Overall, the evidence suggests the creature that spoke with a deep timbre and lots of guttural sounds. Neanderthal that Van Drimini describes is thus right here. This blew me away when I read this in that book. This is a dogman or a werewolf, what Victor calls werewolves. And how Victor described them, he did, in fact, talk one time about them using a branch or a club as a weapon. Neanderthal that Van Drimini describes is thus a terrifying creature, a hunched cannibalistic predator with large shining eyes and an animalistic snout, covered in thick fur, massive muscles built for close combat, hunting by night with brutish and guttural voice, and a huge mouth with huge, sharp teeth and powerful jaws. They did not look like Fred Flintstone. That, my friends, is an ogre, an orc, a bugbear, a Sasquatch, a dogman, whatever it is. It's been appearing in our myths for legends and thousands of years, and it is our greatest enemy. Now, you will learn why we fear the night, which Mr. Murphy talked a little bit about, how the fear of these creatures have been genetically put into our psyche. That's why I shared this, because one, he talks about the portals and orbs being connected to experiences, and also what he says almost mirrors what this says. According to them and us, Neanderthal and human were predator and prey, and we, the human, were the prey. Neanderthal came upon helpless humans by night, slew our men, and carried off our women. How do you think the Neanderthal DNA got into our genome? And they kept doing it generation after generation. Not only were they stronger, faster, tougher than Homo sapiens, the Neanderthals were just as smart and well armed. Under assault by these flesh-eating monsters, the human race almost went extinct. Only by becoming an apex predator ourselves did we survive. We became the greatest killers the world has ever known, because if we hadn't, we would have died out. Is Van Drimany's theory correct? He cites a number of anomalies in the genetic makeup and fossil record of the humans as evidence. Let's start with the genetic makeup. The most remarkable thing about the human genome is that it's not very diverse. According to the geneticist Pascal Gagnou, humans have by far the least amount of genetic variation by any primate. We actually found that one single group of 55 chimpanzees in West Africa has twice the genetic variability of humans. He reports, after scientist Bernard Wood says, the amount of genetic variation that has accumulated in human is just nowhere comparable with the age of our species. To explain it, we must have come within a cigarette paper's thickness of becoming extinct. He says Dr. David Reich of Harvard Medical School calculated that the population of humans dropped to as few as 50 individuals. Something terrible happened to the human race. When did this population bottleneck occur? The number of teams have analyzed mutation rates to find out. The mutation rate in our Y chromosome suggests that bottleneck occurred 37 to 49,000 years ago. The munition rate of single polymorphous suggests 48,000 years. Now let's turn to the fossils, specifically the collection known as Qufzeh skull fossils found in present-day Israel. The fossils first appeared in the Levant region 125,000 years ago. They began to disappear from the fossil record some 80,000 years ago, and the next 30,000 years, and is from around 80 to 50,000 years. The fossils in this region are mostly Neanderthal. So, this is right here. If early Greek, Roman, Norse, and Chinese mythologies are anything to go by, the legends spun by early humans center around a heroic human, almost always a man, who is pitted against an ugly, evil creature or monster with supernatural skills. This universal mythic monster is usually a male, inadvertently wild, hairy, dangerous, and uncouth. So, when we think of Dogman or werewolf, often it is half man, half animal. Tends to live in dank forests or dark caves, or to emerge from the underworld. Under cover of darkness, the monster is frequent, kidnaps women, dragging them back to their shadowy lair, feeding on children and men, and stalking by night. So, to me, even though Van Drimany's theory is not mainstream theory, heterodoxial theory, to me, his theory is pretty spot on, in my opinion. And I like how he states that, through evolution, these creatures have been created to what they are now, or they come from the underworld. Portals. Where there's portals, there's usually orbs, Where there's orbs and portals, there's usually creatures. So, to me, that all makes a heck of a lot of sense. I hope it does to you guys. Even when they talk about Skinwalker Ranch and Skinwalker at the Pentagon, it talks about orbs. Axelrod's family, his wife seeing shadow men, his wife seeing different colored orbs, his family seeing Dogman, all around. It's, to me, that really is quite possibly the best explanation of where these things come from. I know that what I believe is, I do believe there is a flesh and blood, because people have killed these things. The government harnesses them for a breeding program. But yet then there are the ones that come out of portals, ones that people have seen come out of portals. So, just amazing information. And if you guys haven't gotten Van Germany's book, get that. Get Skinwalker and the Pentagon. But this, I want to share this with you guys. This made so much sense to me that I almost couldn't believe what I was reading. Of course, I'm not going to be able to find it now. In The Hunt for Skinwalker, which is the first book in the set of 2, Hunt of Skinwalker and Pentagon, they talk about our national forests in here. And what is said is the government lies. The government knows what is going on in our national forests. And that's in The Hunt for Skinwalker, which all these 2 books, Hunt for Skinwalker and the Pentagon, had to be read by the Department of Defense. So they already knew what they were getting their asses into when they finished these books. But we may never have a scientific answer for where these things come from. But if we have a scientific theory, that's just as good as an answer for me. Because then you can start, if you have a theory and it's wrong, then you can turn that theory into reality, like the truth. Let's say scientists get a body of a Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolf, dissect it, with the populace knowing that this is what, we may never know where these things come from. I think dimensional, and I think earthbound, both. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. It is your support, after all, that keeps this channel growing and going, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on your children, pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real. They are out there. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. And until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.